Hi, I'm Tim of the 1916 Company, announcing our all-new 1916 Company app. Check out our all-new community features, including wrist time, where you can log the watch you wear, how often you wear your watches, and see a graphical representation of how you use your collection. But wait, there's more, because this wrist time feature allows you to post in real time to our live feed of user wrist shots. Our community functions also include professionally moderated discussions, all sorts of views, debate, insights into what people want to say about the watches of our times, and all your favorite features are coming back, including media, editorial from Jack Forster, video from yours truly. You can continue to build your online collection and your wish list, plus all the commercial features are back. Buy, trade, and sell through the app, browse our global inventory of pre-owned and new watches. A wrist shot could begin the process of a trade or a purchase. Find the 1916 Company app on the Apple App Store and Google.
And Jack and I, let me do it again. Welcome back, this is Jack and Eleanor, and we're here in Ardmore in the outskirts of Philadelphia, and we have just behind us a brand new 1916 Company store. We're very excited, Jack and I, to get inside, show you what's out there. You've got some windows of jewelry on one side, but we'll keep it for another show, and some watch cases on the other, which Jack and I will pick one of each brand and maybe give you a short review of it. Shall we?
Yeah, let's go inside.
So, we're gonna start with Hublot. Which one will you pick?
My personal pick from what we have here, I think, is the 42 millimeter Unico Big Bang with a ceramic bezel and gold case. And the reason that I'm really drawn to this one is because I think it's a fantastic example of something that Hublot is famous for, which is combining different materials. So the whole Big Bang idea has to do with the creation and then separation of the elements, and then the combination of different elements that are not necessarily found together in nature. So we've got rubber, we've got ceramic, we've got gold, and all sandwiched together in a really unique combination of a forward-looking and forward-thinking design and different materials.
I love how we said no watch review. Well, my pick, because I have no personality, I'm gonna go blue with you, but another thing that Hublot has been famous for is the Classic Fusion, which is the tinier version, the small version of the Big Bang, and the fact that the use of ceramic. And that tiny version of, it's probably 33 millimeter with this petroleum blue and ceramic, which makes it absolutely like perfect tone and tone with the rubber bracelet and the dial, and obviously a few diamonds on the bezel. This would be my summer pick.
Small in size, but very big in visual impact.
Small and cute. Next. Moving on to Longines. That's an easy one. I would go with the Dolce Vita just because it's feminine, it's iconic, and they just relaunched it in a more modern version.
Yeah, it's an extremely elegant watch and a very classic design from a very classic brand. Speaking of classicism, my personal preference would be for one of the Longines Heritage Divers. I think that these are a beautiful example of doing a dive watch in a way that respects all of the dive watch codes, but that also honors the history of Longines, which, again, is one of the great brands in Switzerland.
Miss Piggy, which is actually the first watch introducing a lab-grown diamond at noon, and I've been the ambassador for this watch and I absolutely love it, but I would still go with the big crown with the burgundy dial or the turquoise dial, just because those are such fun and pop colors that you rarely see in watches. And Oris, I think, has been so understated as a brand, and they've got such cool products.
Yeah, and I think the understatement is deliberate. Oris Big Crown Pointer Date is a wonderful example of a watch with a tremendous amount of character, great connection to watchmaking history, and tremendous value as well.
And every single of their in-house caliber are mechanical. They have no quartz movement whatsoever. Shotgun on that one. I knew you were gonna pick one, the Grand Seiko. I absolutely love either the white, the pink, or the blue dial, which is a reminiscence of the Japanese season when cherry blossom, this like textured dial from the Heritage collection is just a must-have if you were to go with a Japanese model.
Absolutely fantastic choice. My personal choice is, and it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's also probably the single best known Grand Seiko model, the Spring Drive Snowflake. We have a combination of spring drive technology, unique to Seiko, a unique electromechanical watch, and a wonderful example of something that Grand Seiko is very well known for, which is absolutely beautifully decorated dials and hands. A real work of art on the wrist.
Exactly. Okay, I'll let you pick as the first one.
All right.
Because I know you won't pick the one that I like.
Well, I'm going to have to move down the counter a little bit because my personal favorite is this limited edition right here, which is a version of, in fact, the first to defy historical diver. A really, really fantastic watch with an incredible design that goes all the way back to the 1960s. Very, very powerful design language, beautiful vintage size, and an extremely colorful execution. I absolutely love it.
And to stay in line with the gray hues and the vintage style, I'm gonna go with the Chronomaster Revival Shadow in titanium, where you can see the detail of the bracelet that has like little holes in it, just like reminding what the pilots used to wear. You've got the 3 counters, which is obviously in the DNA of Zenith, with the introduction of the Ardmore movement and all the Chronomaster line. I love the 50 shades of gray that literally you do have on the dial, on the bracelet, on the case, and the fact that it's in titanium and has a much smaller diameter and shape and overall dimension than what you usually see at Zenith makes it, I think, one of the perfect watch of the collection.
And you know, lest we forget, Zenith with the El Primero was one of the first brands to create an automatic chronograph movement in 1969. So historically extremely important and a major technical milestone in watchmaking. So here we are with Baume Mercier, perhaps a brand that is not as widely discussed as some of the other brands we've looked at so far, but nonetheless an historically important brand in Switzerland and a historically important brand in terms of design. And in terms of watch design, I'm going to have to go with this lovely blue-dialed Baume Mercier Riviera with its characteristic 12-sided bezel. When it was first introduced, not necessarily a revolution in design, but certainly a wonderful and interesting new take in its time on the stainless steel sports watch.
To stay on the classic side of things, I'm gonna go with the Classima, which has a steel case with a white/opaline dial, hands that are really easily to read, a date at 3 o'clock. And it's just the simple version of what classic watchmaking should be. Breitling. I would go for the Chronomat Automatic 36, especially the sand dial, kind of champagne slash coral, like vintage looking, with little links and detail. But what's interesting on that watch is that Breitling was one of the first watchmen to introduce lab-grown diamonds, exclusively first on the Chronomat collection, and then overall, starting I think last year, every single diamond used in the Breitling line were lab-grown. And I think the contrast of the white diamond and the champagne details makes it very subtle and very cool for a sports watch for women.
Absolutely, a lot of amazing choices here. I would have to go with the classic Breitling Navitimer B01 Chronograph 46. If you're looking for a watch with an authentic connection to civil and commercial and military aviation, the Navitimer is kind of one of the absolute pinnacles of that group of watches, with its slide rule bezel that can be used for a myriad of calculations, both for flying and in regular life.
Is that why when you wear it, you kind of feel that you're a pilot?
I do kind of feel like I'm a pilot when I wear it. And I'm also reminded of the fact that I've written about the slide rule bezel 6 times and still can't remember how to use it.
You know, for once, I almost bought that one because I loved the gray, but then when they came out with the Black Bay, which was after Black Bay 54, that made the big year of Watches and Wonders, I like kind of the purist at Rolex we call the Pepsi bezel. But on that version, I would go with the rubber bracelet because I find that the 2 colors on the bezel contrasting with kind of the ivory hands and indexes with the black matte dial just is perfect combination of classic, modern, and I mean, David Beckham wears it, so why not me?
Absolutely. This is tough for me because there's very few Tudor watches that I don't like and wouldn't wear. But my personal favorite right now is the Pelagos. And the reason that I like the Pelagos is because it's an absolutely pure example of a modern dive watch with a very, very significant depth rating. As a master chronometer, it's resistant to very high flux magnetic fields, and it's a pure practical example of what a dive watch should be in the modern era.
Fair point. The Pilot line at IWC was kind of the reminiscence of like sports watch, considering how much IWC has been conservative and classic, which is why we love the brand. But the Pilot with the sandy tone-on-tone ceramic case, plus the dial, plus the hands, the 3 counters, and the nylon bracelet is just the perfect watch to go wander, to go on a safari, or even just on a vacation, and without wondering what's going on with the watch, you just have it and carry it at all times.
You know, for me, there are 3 fundamental IWC watches: the Flieger chronograph, the Pilot, the various Mark series watches, and the big Pilot watch. And at least for me personally, the big Pilot watch really edges out just about everything else, just because I'm old enough to remember when it launched. I remember the enormous enthusiasm that people felt for it. I remember what a revolution it was in design. And I remember how much people loved its honest connection with the history of aviation and the history of IWC. And so for me, I think it's the big Pilot every time.
I feel like I know nothing when I'm next to you.
Oh, everybody feels that way.
This is going to be tough because you've got the iconic Happy Sport with the patented, like the floating diamonds in the dial that was introduced in 1976. But ever since they reintroduced the Alpine Eagle, which in my opinion, the dual tone with the gray dial that reminds the iris of an eagle, hence the Alpine Eagle collection, is just the perfect sports watch, especially in such a small diameter and the combination of rose gold and steel.
You know, for me, Chopard is always tough because I love so much of what they do, especially the LUC series of beautifully finished movements. But I have, sometimes the obvious choice is the right one. I'm going to go for an Alpine Eagle in steel with a blue dial, and I don't think that you could ask for a finer integrated bracelet sports watch.
So the overall world is, you come to Chopard, you go straight for Alpine Eagle, and you'll find something you'll like. That's fair. Again. Well, Moser, they don't have the rainbow bezel with the Vanta Black and Streamliner and rose gold, but they do have the perpetual calendar on the Streamliner with this iconic smoky dial with the ultimate chicness in terms of watchmaking is that there's no mention whatsoever of the brand, and that's what makes the beauty of Moser watches.
Although in a way, there are a few watch cases and few watch designs that are as instantly recognizable as the Streamliner. So if there ever were a watch where you didn't need a name on the dial to know who made the watch, it's probably the Streamliner. My personal preference in this case would be, my personal preference would probably be the Tourbillon minute repeater. It's an amazing combination of complications, and it's also something that you definitely would not expect to find in a case that references Streamliner design and that particular era of industrial design in general, because the minute repeater is really a classic, refined, high complication. You think of elegant classic watchmaking, you don't think of combining it with a design like this, and it shouldn't work, but for some reason it does, and it works really well. It sounds great too on top of everything else.
I'm not going to say fair because you're going to keep repeating that I only have one word in my English vocabulary. So by now you know me, I'm a Libra, I have a hard time choosing. So I'm going to cheat and I'm going to pick 2. Number 1 will be the Tortue from Cartier because it's so French, it's so elegant. The monogram and the very classic black and white with diamonds on the bezel is just the epitome of what elegance should be.
It is. It is a watch that is so chic, I am forced to use the word. And it's so elegant that if it could talk, it would say drop dead.
Well, and now, because we have to go completely sideways and we have to go with something that is way more sporty, way more bulky, and probably a little more masculine, and I'm going to go with a Radiomir Panerai dial just because the industrial look, the patina, the different hands that you have on the dial, it's so different from what you usually see in Panerai, and also very rare if you can ever spot it on a woman's wrist.
Absolutely a wonderful, wonderful choice. A classic for Panerai with the California California / error-free dial, and a wonderful example of something that the Italians do extremely well, which is combine something very, very technical with a great deal of clear, vivid design beauty. I think it's a fantastic watch. That being said, I picked something a little cluttered and, dare I say, nerdy. So let's have a look. So my choice from what we have in pre-owned today is this Longines Time Zone, which is full of really, really interesting watchmaking. And it's also an example of, well, like the two watches you chose, one of the great moments in modern watch design, the Longines when it came out. Nobody had ever really seen anything like that before. And yet it's a beautifully balanced design. And as is always the case with Longines, there's some absolutely amazing watchmaking going on behind the scenes. And, you know, it's a quirky watch. Wearing a Longines Time Zone it's a little bit like wearing a bow tie. You know, you have to be a little bit of a contrarian. You have to not be afraid of looking as if you're kind of going against the crowd. And it's also a watch that really says you like what you like, and you choose what you choose for your own reasons and not somebody else's.
So it's interesting. It's between you and I. We've picked 3 pieces of the 1916 pre-owned selection. We agreed on 1 piece. Each of us have another one, which kind of completes this eclectic selection of what everybody should have in one's portfolio.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it goes to show you that no matter what your tastes are, there are absolute icons to be found that represent what you might like most about watches. So thank you for doing this, Eleonor. It's been a huge, huge pleasure, and let's do it again.
Likewise, and on to the next one.